Note to myself, I cannot make short videos. Literally, I looked at my audio interface and thought, awesome, that's a box and cylinders. That's going to be done really fast. And now we are 4 hours in. Anyway, good stuff just takes time. What are we going to do in this video now? Well, as the name says, we're going to texture and then render it. So we will take a look at how we can make anodized aluminum. How can we make dials that have actually a brush pattern on it and an anisotropic reflection? How can we create materials that, as you can see, emit light? For a lot of that stuff, I use in this exercise Vectornator. You can also use Illustrator or Affinity Designer. Vectornator is a really nice lightweight illustration tool to quickly put vectors, text for interface stuff down. Runs on a Mac, runs on an iPad, very nice and mobile. And we will also use a lot of reference images. The download link is in the description of the video, where I will talk about how maybe via the camera I move around and try to see what type of angle do I like. I pay attention to reflections, etc. And also we will go into kind of like detailed studies, because when I would like to make a material, I need to know how does it look. And the best way is I will make myself reference photos so I can study them. Okay, very good. With all that stuff set, get a coffee, get some food, because this ride took me just 2 hours to record. It's about time to export all the individual objects as OBJ mesh so we can load them into Blender or the host render application. Again, I choose OBJ because it carries over at least basic color data, not necessarily the material or appearance Fusion, for example, uses. There's also a little trick I would like to point out at the beginning. You see here, these two dials are the same, or these 4 buttons are the same. Now you can, if your host application allows that, simply export one version and then we make copies and snap them into position. That is what we're going to do with Blender. So the easiest way to start, top down, right click, save as, and then you go to meters. Now this is important because Blender works with meters. Okay, select your desktop. If you want, we could call this housing. Then later when you have to import the OBJ files, you know what is what. Save. Okay. And then you can hide it and go to the next object. That's a foot here. Save as. You have to always recheck meter. The program currently does not remember the last setting. For refinement, high or so, or medium, not necessarily low. We call this then foot, and so forth. And then you can hide the other duplicates and just continue with the next piece. So that's, for example, the back plate. Now we export this as a back plate, then the front plate, and you see quite quickly we have actually then all the individual objects exported. On the Mac side, you see I have all the files I need inside one folder. That makes it very easy to store them and see them. And take a look at this. Now, this is the gain dial. It comes at least with the 2 material colors. Or, for example, the monitor dial. Pretty nice. And then there's the other part, the LED ring, the housing, and so forth. So these objects now, one by one, I can load into Blender. So here in Blender, quickly, let's go to File, Import, and Wavefront. Then we navigate to where we have the objects exported to. I changed the display style to list because it's now very easy to see all the objects we have. Backplate is the one we want. Forward is Y, Z is up. Very nice. Import. The object is kind of tiny. We can click it, or in the outliner, click it. File, sorry, not file. We go to View and then Frame Selected. That repositions the camera and allows us to zoom into much nicer and closer. Okay, then again, file, import. And the next one, the settings remain the same. Then file, import, next one. Then that's the foot, there we are. And file, import, front plate. Now you can also, when you have in inputs the spacebar set for the search command, you can press spacebar and you type in IM for import space OB for OBJ. And let's see it OBJ. Okay, well, we have to type in OBJ. There it is, file import. Cool. Actually, let's see what happens when we only have OBJ. Then it even finds all the words or commands that have OBJ in it. So there we are, import. Cool. We had the front plate, gain dial, there, spacebar, click, and housing, click, spacebar, click, and LED, click, spacebar, click, mic in socket, monitor dial, that one's the big one, and XLR input. Okay, very nice. So you see, this way it was very easy to import all the individual pieces quite fast. I use actually spacebar and then search for commands, particularly when I have to repeat things a lot, because wherever my mouse is, when I press spacebar, that command pops up, or the dialog, so I don't have to really run marathons with my mouse over the screen. Now we have to adjust our copies. So this is the gain dial, very good. And I will select my housing. Let's go to here and turn this on. And I would like to hide the housing for the moment. And there's one thing I would like to point out. So here's an object, and you see the center is there, and there's the mesh, and there's the center. So the center for all imported objects from Fusion, the center is set to, well, the world center. But this is a nice cylindrical object. I would like the center to be at a point where it's a little bit more useful. So for example, I select this LED ring, then right click and say set origin to geometry. Now I will do this here and pay attention to how this point will snap right to there. Okay, so what's actually now the big difference? Let me change this to bounding box, and then I press R, and you see how well this rotates around the center point. Okay, let me select the dial and press R, and you see where the center of rotation is. Okay, so that makes sense now to a certain degree. I also said the 3D cursor is really, really useful in many videos, for many commands, for snapping, for translation, for measurement, object placement. So with the LED, when we go to the top view, we see the center point is perfectly centered because, well, it is a circle or a tube, donut. So what we can do is Shift S, and then we say cursor to the selected. Now you see the 3D cursor moved to there. Then we can select the gain dial, right click and say move the origin, now this time to the 3D cursor. Okay, there you see it, no? So why is this actually useful? Let's click the front plate, and then we go into edit mode. We press AA, or we say select none, and then we go into wireframe mode. Then we go select and circle, and then we paint over this selection. I only have vertex select turned on. Right click to escape, Shift S cursor to selected. And you see now the cursor moved to the polygon selection. Then we leave the object mode. We can go back to shaded mode, select this one and shift select this one. Now here, this is actually important. In Blender, you can make two type of copies, a duplicate or a linked. A linked, think about it like a clone. We want to do linked. Click this to there. Very good. And linked means the mesh is really the same. It's shared. It's really like an instance. And now we say Shift S and then selection to cursor. Flop there. So you see, we reposition the cursor first, and then we make copies and move the copies, snap them to the cursor. Now let's say we would like this to be a little bit less cursory. We can set the snapping to vertex. Okay, and then we go to this, then we select this, right click origin to geometry, and then the next step again is very important. We say duplicate linked. Okay, then don't click, we see we're moving. Then we can press X for the x-axis, and then I move my mouse to where I want like to snap the geometry, and then I press and hold Control. Hopefully. But it doesn't do it. Okay, click, maybe turn this on. Ah, good. There it does it. So, because now we want this to be very precise, you see here I turned on the control for snapping. Now I move this over and flop, there we are. Cool. It should work actually pretty good, because what's happening is we move this horizontally, and then the polygons, you will see they will start at one point to line up. We don't want something to snap like this. It should still look pretty good. Okay, maybe let's do this one more time. This time actually with shortcuts. Hold on, actually, what is, so shortcut? Oh, Shift Tab. Shift Tab. Okay, that's for this one. Yeah, good. So we will look at this. So this is actually Option D. So Option D, and then X. And then I try to really not find a point right where my mouse is, but really to the furthest point to the right side. Click. There we are. See, pretty easy. Here the same. Right click, origin to geometry. Yeah, that's fine. And then Option D, press X. Here the same. I click actually this one to here. This moved a little bit. I go to the front view and then move this. I click and drag, and there you can see that this lines up kind of like with the x-axis. Okay, very nice. Okay, so how do we do this one? Because this is not horizontally aligned. Yeah, but it's still pretty easy. So Alt D and X, and then we try to position it. Very good. We can go to the front view, and then we simply move this one up and zoom in more. Maybe go into wireframe mode. Yeah, and there we can see we are slightly off. Well, not too much. So G and X. So I press G for move or grab, X for the x-axis, click on this, then we are good. Okay. So 2 ways how to do this. You select the one you feel the most comfortable with. Because these models or these objects are very dense in terms of polygon, there are a lot of snap targets. So that's the downside of it. You can see how many points we could snap to. But if you work careful, it's a pretty easy task. So that is done. How do we do this? I wish actually patterns would be that easy in Fusion. So we actually will use the mirror command. So you see the object center is there and we leave it this time. We go to the modifier and then we will select mirror and X is already on, turn on Y, and there we are, done. Cool. Okay, now I also talked about these are clones, these are individual objects. What does this mean? Let's select one and then we go into edit mode. You see the other one is selected. Let's select a point, press G and move this around. There you see, they're clones. Okay, let's undo everything. And via the tab key, T-A-B, tab, most times I pronounce it as a P, tab, not step dancing, just tab. You just go back to object mode. Cool. So now we actually kind of like brought everything in geometry wise over. And what's your best friend? Yeah, you guessed it. File and save. And I will save this to the desktop. Focusrite. And let's see. Compression I would like to turn on. So the files are nice and small. Cool. Now before we set anything up in Blender, we will take a look at some photos and references. So here again, I used my handy sidekicks, my tracing tablets, to create a lighting box. This time actually you see a left and a right and even a top light. That's actually quite helpful because with the left and the right side, we have light, but sometimes you also want to have light from the top. Now, because this is physically a little bit more limited, also I wanted to have a small thing that I can photograph. I needed to stack these lights or these tracing tables the way how you see them, because otherwise everything would fall apart. But my main idea here is to show you how, again, I'm using kind of like a light box, and then via turning lights on and off, try to study how does this actually look. There's the left light on, there's the right light on, and there's the top light on. Then the left is off, the right is off, only the top. And now all lights are off and we're back to the natural light inside the room. And the left is on again. And actually I'm dimming it at the end because now this is kind of like simulating only because I have a light. That's not all I can do. There's also strength. How strong should the light be? Okay. Again, when we kind of like scrub through this is a really nice exercise. No lights, left, right. Because it's good to pay attention to what's happening on the right corner when I add a light. You see actually the structure of the rough aluminum much better with a light there than here. You don't see it. These are insights which are really important once you want to do renderings and you want to create a structure to a material and you don't see it. We need lights for that. Now, and with the left light is off, but the right light is on, your eyes really will wander to where it's really bright. Okay. Here, everything is actually more focused about the angle. From what position do I photograph it? Also, reflections. Now, the front is very reflective. I'm just paying attention to also to proportions. There's my magic hand. Should cut my fingernails. And maybe how does everything look more from the front, not the piece being rotated. Yeah, I mean, that can be a very informative rendering, but it will look rather boring. The other one actually was much nicer than this compared to this. Boop, boop. Reminds me of Monty Python. Okay, very good. Also, what's actually quite interesting here is like what I was paying attention to again. When I have a light, what do I see on the body? How does it reflect it? I have a light on the left side and no light on the ground. I see a little bit of reflection on the ground, and then here's a really nice reflection just of the light. kind of like centered. That gave me an interesting idea that maybe, this looks nice and clean. And this doesn't look so good. This is very distracting. What's going on? It looks like an accident. So filming around an object is actually a really good exercise because you can just very easily see from what angle can I read the object really good. And now I take a look at the logo, and now I take a look at the interface. What do I really want to show through my shot? And instead of making 20 renderings, it's very easy if you have a reference object, videotape it. Okay, very good. So the last thing then is this is all about generating the objects, the studio. Now we have to think about the material. So I took a photo of the Focusrite and the M1 Mac Mini. Perfect beast, by the way. Nice, silent, no heat, adequate power. And I did this in front of the window with some blinds at certain degrees open and closed, because what's interesting here to see is how does this aluminum and anodized aluminum look in the shadow and in the bright area. Again, when you want to do renderings, you need to know how materials have to look so we can artificially create materials. And the easiest way to do that is simply study existing objects. My wife thinks I have a hoarding issue, but she doesn't realize that this is all teaching material. Wherever I have an interesting plastic, some silicone, some brushed metal, whatever, I kept scraps because I can use those for my own work, for reference, or also for teaching. So here on the top view, a side view, a closer view, it's really interesting to see how strong then from a distance and how strong from close up this actually looks. Now with less light, more light, and the shadow area is really interesting to study. Also here, just the normal aluminum of the Mac Mini or the anodized version. And then let's actually see how does this look inside a studio environment. So I went back to the lightbox because you can see colors look very different. This is artificial bluish light from the light boxes, and this is actually warm sunlight, and we are reaching now kind of like the end of the year. It's also 2 p.m. so that also affects the color of the sun. Very nice. The amount of reflection I can see there. Distance, zoom in, zoom out, also very useful. Now try to do this from various degrees. And then we look at, for example, the silicone, slightly out of focus, but it's still very good. You can see there is a shimmer on it, but it's not very clear. We have here a nice, kind of like an anisotropic effect, but it's also because the surface is scratched or there are grooves on it. And I really try to clean up the glossy area, and you can see how terrible it is. There's still a lot of dust on it, but it's really nice to see how crisp the reflection actually is. And also these tiny dials. Okay, so you can make more photographs, obviously, and study stuff more. I would not make too many photos. In general, try to make few good photos that really capture what you're looking for. So with all this studied, it's time to go back to Blender and work on our scene. That's the first thing we will do. The 3D cursor, I would like to go back to the world center, Shift S, cursor to world origin. Then we can zoom out with the mouse wheel, Shift and middle mouse button, center, add plane. The plane is pretty big. You know, if we go back and take a look at the references, we can see how close everything is. So it's kind of like the double amount of a Focusrite left and right. And we can click this. Then we go into edit mode by tab or edit mode. Everything is selected. Select all S for scale, and we scale it down maybe like this. How much is this actually? Upper right, upper left corner, you can see a percentage. So this is let's say 0.25. So we scale the whole rectangle down to 1/4. Okay, enter. There. Then we know here in the back, we would like to create a backdrop. So with the left mouse button and shift, I click these 2 points. Then I press E for extrude. I mean, the extrude command is also here. I can click and drag and then press the Z key twice till I get this the blue line going straight up. Or what I simply rather prefer is I have these 2 points selected, press E and then Z. For me, this is faster. I would like to maybe have a little bit of dimension. You see upper left corner, I have a readout 0.3397 meters. So this is kind of like 30 centimeters going up. If I type in 0.4, this is 0.4 meters equal 40 centimeters. Click. So this edge is now 40 centimeters. That tells me maybe I should go to units and change this to centimeters for the moment. This I can move back G and Y by 5 centimeters when I type in 5, because I'm in in centimeters now. Blender understands that with 5 I mean 5 centimeters. Enter. Very good. Okay. Then we can leave this. This edge I would like to bevel and round. I can add a bevel modifier to this object that simply will round every sharp edge. 10 segments for the profile 0.6 to make it a little bit softer. Very nice. 10 centimeters. That looks pretty much close to what I have in real life. Right click, shade smooth, or we go object and shade smooth, or spacebar shade smooth. Okay. Very good. Now, we might actually move this back a little bit. Let's go into edit mode and then click these 2 lines. That selects the edge. I would like to know how long is this edge. Let's see, where's this hidden? There. So we click on this drop down. This is actually for the viewport overlay, and overlay please the length. So this is 50 centimeter long, as you can see. Okay. Very nice. So that's good to know. If I would like, I could move this whole object back. For example, so I could press G and Y by, let's say 10 centimeters. So I have a little bit more space to the back, less to the front. Okay, let's add a camera. Camera, Shift A, or you go add camera. Then we move this further away. I still have snapping turned on. Let's turn that off. The camera we would like to rotate correctly. 0, 0, and 0. And I press tab each time. Then we can rotate this along the x-axis 90 degrees. Since we will work with a camera and lights and materials, let's do this. I go to here, right click and say split horizontal. Go down to there. Then one time back, split vertical. This is going to be for my shader editor, and this is going to be my camera. Now here, now I can move this one up nicely. There we are. The lens, set it to 70. Very good. And the tilt shift a little bit down. can move this a tick more up. You see now I see more of the top. Sorry, wrong one. And I move this further more down. Okay. Again, this is a tilt shift, so my have vertical edges remain vertical. I do not want from a side view to rotate the camera because then these lines actually start rotating. That's terrible. I mean, you can if you want to, but I find this is rather confusing. Okay, all goody. Time to add some lights. Sagte, es werde Licht, doch fand den Schalter nicht. It's a joke in German. Maybe Google will translate it for you. Shift A, we will add lights, area light, again, because this is pretty much the way how my light boxes work. Okay. And the light boxes have a dimension of 26 by 36 centimeters. So we will change the shape to rectangle. And then that is 26, X, and then Y is 36. Very good. And then we can rotate this one along the Y axis, minus 90. I go to the front view, move this one up. Okay. Very nice. And then I move this one back. They are actually a little bit on the paper. Very good. Yeah. Again, I'm kind of like mapping this out. Let's do a little bit of scene setup. Right now, this is getting a little bit confusing up here. Drag this one down, right-click, new collection, and then we call this one maybe light and magic. Yeah, I wanted to work there. But there was a childish dream, light and camera. Still pretty amazing what these studios can do. I was told, actually, when I was a student, we were told basically you want to work at Pixar, Industrial Light and Magic, etc. They're going to be your spouse. No time for anything else. That's kind of true. Okay, anyway, I'm rambling. We open this collection and then we drag this one to there. And then this collection we can call Focusrite. Focusrite. Maybe I should really focus correctly. Camera, click and drag to there. Cool. And maybe here the backdrop there. Double click, backdrop. It's very easy to structure your environment, and then you can, with a mouse click, turn objects on off. So this light, now we would like to make a copy. Shift D and escape, so it doesn't move anywhere else. We can see where this light is along the x-axis. So this is actually minus 16. So we simply say 16, and maybe we clean this up. We say 17 positive, and then here this one is minus 17. And the z height 13, and for the other one, the z height 13. And we need to rotate it by 90 degrees. Sorry, 180. And there we are. Cool. Never forget. Save. Okay, let's see what engine are we have cycles for rendering. Let's do a quick peek. Okay, pretty bright. There's too much environment light. First, I will set this to white and then to 0, so that's out. And then these lights here, let's make them 5 watts. And what about you? 5 watts. It's pretty bright. Okay. Could also be, I know what it is. The lights are okay. The material is way too rough and reflective. We will fix that in a moment. Okay. So maybe stop the rendering. Then we need one light on top. There we are. So Shift D and escape. Now this should be a light that sits on top and is rotated. Along the x-axis, I can rotate it 90 degrees this time. No, incorrect. Okay. click and drag. By the way, this is really cool. Click and drag, and you can select multiple values at once. 0. Now the Z, what's Z? Okay, you are Z, then you are 90, very good. This is the X position here, this is 0, and then we can go to a front view and move this one up so it sits on top. 26, let's say 27. Okay. Awesome sauce. Okay. So we have actually now most of our scene kind of like preset up. S and scale this camera down. If I want for the camera some, where are the things again? Viewport display there, zuck, and maybe center, diagonals, and thirds. Okay. So I have roughly an ability to plan where is what. And then it's time actually to work on the materials. So I said a moment ago that when we turn on the rendering, this is actually looks very whitish. That's because the reflection of the imported materials are kind of wrong. So, however, let's set actually all lights to 5. They're all good. Nice. Then we can work actually with the backdrop first. Here's a little tip. The smaller this window is for rendering, the faster the rendering will work. So try not to have this full screen, particularly when we set up materials. Now we can go to material here. This is the backdrop. It has no material yet. I could click this or click here. Same function. I'm inside the shader editor. New. Then this is backdrop. I can zoom in a little bit. So this is 0.8 for the maximum white. If I make this really black, okay, there we are. Maybe a roughness down to 0. Okay, there you can see the reflection a little bit. Just a tiny bit. There and there. And then click in this. Based on if you work with RGB, HSV, or hex. I was actually a really big RGB guy till I switched into HSV. Here, this is basically the value on the grayscale, 0.8. We go with 0.8 because, let me say it this way. We don't go to pitch white and pitch black. So we always are a little bit above black and a little bit below white. And below white is 0.8. Okay. It has actually to do with energy conservation or conserving, because it's not there talking. It's more how energy is being absorbed and reflected bounces off. So it's more mathematical reason. But for us, 0.8 is easy. No, when I click this aluminum body, there you can see the roughness is really high. Let's set this down to 0. Okay. And sheen, yeah, okay. Base color, this is all good. Hold on 1 second. So this is red, black. Okay. Very good. So now when we reset actually, or we removed the thing, when we zoom in now, it is a nice dark material. And we would like to have a reference for the material. No, you could go online and find maybe a good photo of the Focusrite, or maybe even ask in Google what type of color is it used. Maybe it's a Pantone or whatever. We will do a little color matching. So inside this viewport, I will open the image editor and then open and material study. And I would like to, yeah, so this is actually more close, but this is more what we see inside the rendering. So I will actually go with this for the moment. This is not necessarily ideal, but what I wanted to show you is we can click on this color and go eyedropper and then pick something. Okay. And we might be able to adjust this a little bit if I use now, for example, this and then eyedrop. I can click and drag this around and then even pick other reds. There. Okay, cool. Let's check also color management. Filmic RGB, this is all good. Maybe medium contrast here. Okay, so how do we continue? We can work with a lot of lights, or for example, I primarily work with the left light right now. So it's less over flooded with light. It's a little bit more dramatic, and also can turn this off for the rendering. So these lights are not only invisible, they really don't pop up for the rendering. Nada nicks don't show up. Then we have a little bit of reflectivity and a little bit of roughness. I don't really know yet these values. We need to set these up at a later point. So for example, now here I can load this if I want as a reference there. Okay, good. Then let's continue. We can select the front plate, and that should be nice and glossy. So whoop, whoop, and suck. There we are. And I did the bad thing a little bit higher. Cool. Easy. The dial should be kind of like silicone rubbery. So if we go to the material slot here, you see it has actually, oh, look, two materials. There's the ABS white and there's the rubber. So I can override rubber and rename it. And I could simply call this white, or maybe white marker, so I know what that is supposed to be. Let me just make this white. Nice. And then rubber here. That does have a good roughness and a little bit of a reflectivity, and is actually kind of darkish. So where is my reference? Here's my reference there. Now when I go into 3D view and zoom in and look around, now I can really see, oh, my dark is actually the way how I added memory way too dark. Yeah, this is actually better. Yeah, okay. Nicer, maybe even. So if I maybe turn on the other lights for the moment, let's see. Now see they shoot in more light. Also, what is each light? This is another thing maybe we should do. So your left, and then this. Actually, let's call this one area left, simply because of the naming. This is actually the area right, and area 51 top. Why do people think only America has UFOs? I never got it. Anyway, so there we are. Okay. Now it's much easier to turn on the lights on and off. And maybe we should lower the value a little bit. 2 and 2, so they're less strong. Okay, yeah. Click this dial and then we can go to view frame selected, and it's a lot easier to rotate around. Or maybe do this to this one, because that's the one I have actually in here. Okay. There we can see how reflective that surface here looks. Yeah, it is actually pretty nice and sharp. So this is actually quite matching. Yeah. And oh, look at that. There is a fillet. Oh no, we have this object exported already. No, we are doomed. So because we changed the orientate, also the object center point, we might need to do a little bit of trickery, but this might be a good moment to show you what do we do if we want to replace geometry. So first, let's actually save. Then we go to Fusion and go to, where do we make this dial? There, okay. Let's say here, this is, I do it after this. This way then the split command is not getting confused. There we are. Okay, and I have to add this material now. Okay, good. See, it didn't really work. So I need to, before I do really split, add actually this fillet. Okay, there's the sketch, there's a cutting, but it cuts only these two faces. I add this face to it. Very good. Press A, paper face. There we are. Thank you. And that should be kind of it. Let's hope. Yeah, very nice. So, and this body now, right click, we will export one more time. Flop and body 15. I will call this obj, and then this is the gain button new. And then let's go back to Blender. So what we'll do now is file import wavefront obj. The gain new, there it is. Z up, Y forward. Fits right into the position, perfect. And then I select the one I do not want anymore, that's this one, and I delete it. This actually I will move into the correct collection. So how do we flip this one? Actually, this case will be pretty fairly easy. You remember that we changed the center point for this object. So Shift S cursor to the selected. And then we selected this other object and then said right click origin to 3D cursor. Okay, cool. Now, there are two ways. Shift S cursor to selected. I can select this one then. Shift D, make a copy, Shift S, snap it to there. Works. Now, the other one needs to be removed, or this is maybe interesting for those who want to dive more into it. These two objects are not linked. How can I link this one to that one? And here, this is the property for the object. And this is the property for the mesh that's inside. Mesh inside. What? Think about it this way. In Illustrator or InDesign, you draw a text box and then you type in text. So the object is the text box and the polygons is the text. This is gain button new. I can click this one and then go to here and swap this out. Flop. There, now it says 2 because this mesh is used 2 times. Or I select this, and then object, make links, link object data. The same thing. Cool. Now, obviously, the material here probably got messed up a little bit. Here, the rubber is gone. What about here? Hey, we have this rubber I would like to replace. So this is a material slot, same like here. And now I'm simply overriding this. And here for the ABS, I think, where's the white marker? There. Here it says 0, and let's see, do I have this somewhere else? This means 0 users. Once we save and quit Blender, it's being removed, or we go clean up and say remove unused cleanups. Thank you. Then Control S and save. There we are. Let's take a look. Yeah, looks better now. If I now compare this one, I can really see that reflectivity is way, way too small. This one maybe stronger. What about roughness? And maybe we lower the base color. Where is the base color? Oh, there. It's a little bit dark. It's also slightly bluish. There you can see it's a little bit more blue tinted. Maybe drag this a little bit more to the center. Yeah. Okay. So you should not really tinker with the materials too much at the beginning. It's just quickly blocking everything out, and then step by step we can add more realism to it. So here, this, where do we have actually a good photo of this? Let's see. Oh, we don't have one in here. Then let's go back to, oh, here we have it. No, this is actually the video. There's the nice light box. Open, we zoom in, and there we can see there's some sort of reflection happening. You also see here, look how dark this actually is in that photo. The other one was actually much brighter. So be careful with the photos you take, because they can be color adjusted too. So this should be a plastic, and there is roughness and there is reflectivity on it. Yeah, and actually now these two look pretty close. The same material, let's say here we call this now plastic rough. This plastic I would like to be used by these other two elements. So U and U, I can select this, hold shift, click this one. Then I go object and say make link and say material. So it links, these two are linked to the last object material. Alternatively, I can also select a dial and then go to here, type in plastic rough, there it is, select it. And you see these others are all clones. They got it automatically. Pretty cool, huh? Let's take a look at the camera. There we are. Sweet. We will, oh, why do we have two different materials? Oh, I think the outside in this, yeah. It's actually harder plastic, so we will remove one material. Good exercise. I made maybe a mistake here. One is gone. This will be that white material, white marker, and this we will call plastic, I don't know yet, glossy. Chop. There we are. Chop. Chop. A little bit of roughness because it's not really, nothing is really truly non-reflective. Okay. So then oh wait, actually I only need to do one here. Plastic glossy chunk. The feet, where are the feet? Feet. There, rubber soft. We can call this rubber soft, or you could say feet. It's really up to you how you would like to do this. This is kind of like under the base, so it's not really going to see this much, which is why I'm just skipping that step a little bit. You see more zeros popping up because we're removing actually these materials. So maybe one more cleanup, sock. Yeah, Then there we have plastic, translucent, glossy. So what about you? Are good. What about you? Yep. And you and yep. There. There. Ah, look at that. Let's say we call this one plastic high glossy. That is, for example, the same also here for the back. Plastic high glossy. Very nice. And then this, let's call aluminium red. I'm just, oh, that's not what I wanted. Clean up. Clean up, clean up. Everybody wants to clean up. I should learn my daughter's nursing songs better. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like a rough version. If you go back in the video to the beginning, you start noticing how we are step by step actually working ourselves nicely towards the final result. Now in the next step, essentially it's tweaking the materials, tweaking also maybe the position of the body. We want to also add actually the interface elements on it. And then, yeah, we're kind of render and done. So to rotate our object, there are two ways. We could rotate the whole scene around our audio interface, or we could rotate our audio interface inside the scene. So this is really something kind of like up to us to decide what we would like to do. Because let's say we might want to import later another piece of geometry. It might be easier in this case to rotate the scene around. So we will switch here to a 3D viewport. So how do we do this really super easy? Okay, so you see where my audio interface is. Shift S cursor to the world origin. That should be right under it. It is. Very good. Now we will select inside here the light, the other light, the next light, the camera, and then the last, shift and click the backdrop. So again, click a light, hold shift, click, 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 and the backdrop last. The last one has a different color. That means that's always the target. And we can turn that into a parent. Welcome to parenting in 3D modeling. Fortunately, you don't have to deal with toddlers. So when we now selected the backdrop, what is this parenting actually for? Well, as toddlers love it, they run around and do whatever they want. And irritate you. But when the parent steps in and says, you all zip it, when I'll go right or go left, you all go with me. Basta, no discussion. So you see that's a simple hierarchy. Children can move independently, but if the parent moves, they copy the movement of the parent. That's the way how it should be. That would be amazing in case this would be that way in real life. Anyway, so now we can rotate the backdrop. Okay. But hey, how is this rotation here happening? It's I mean, it rotates nicely, but you see where the center point is. The center point of my backdrop is not under my Focusrite. That is not what I want. Okay, so 0Z. Oh, that was very German. 0Z. TH. So hard, that thing. Why? It could have been easier to just say this is that and not this and that. Tongue breaker for non-English speakers. I mean, non-Canadians, non-Americans, non-British, and those who live on that island called Australia. Not to be confused with Austria. Anyway, so 3D cursor, that center point I would like to move to there. So when I move my backdrop, everything rotates around it. Okay, Shift S with the backdrop selected and cursor to world origin. Very good. And then right click origin to 3D cursor. Flop. So, and when I rotate it now, yeah, that is pretty cool. So you see, I just move one object and everything updates quite nicely. If I would like to move the camera now further away from it, this is also very good to talk about global and local. You see how the Y is, well, along Y, but I want the Y to be along the camera. So let's switch to local. Then actually now you see this is actually Z. And when I move this, I can move the camera along its own orientation, forward and backwards. Beautiful. Beautiful. Up and down. There. And if I select my backdrop again, I rotate this, and you see everything follows it. So that's pretty handy actually. This way I can also very nicely quickly say rendering from the front, rendering from the side, instead of having to select all the other stuff. The thing, however, you need to keep in mind, the backdrop changes a little bit, but for our level right now, that is all okay. With this adjusted, now it's maybe time to think about, that's maybe too much rotated. So the reflection on it are not really good. Yeah, what do I do here? I will do the following. Shift S, cursor to world origin, and then I will switch my rotation around 3D cursor. Very good. Select my camera, and then when I press R and I'm in a top view, you see how I'm overriding, or I'm rotating the camera a little bit more. So this way, actually, I get a really nice reflection on here. That's nice and linear. Also there, looks really nice, but the backdrop is not really ideal. So I went undo a few times just to see, can I maybe change something via the rotation later? When I rotate the camera, I can by itself, I can also rotate the camera freely. It's just then very difficult to make sure that when this goes back to 0, the camera is also really at where it should have been before. So you see everything is rotated. So that's why let's undo everything. Kind of like, think about the camera is like a broken piece. But look at that. There we have actually this line. A little bit of that stuff comes in, and I see a little bit of the side. What about when I move the camera left and right? Okay, hold on. Hold your horses. There's another trick. So this looks pretty good. Camera. There's also a Schiltift. Okay, that looks good, but then other side is gone class. That doesn't really work. Shouldn't have said hold your horses. Yeah, so we kind of like run into that issue there again. But we're on a good track. So maybe we just need to change the rotation a little bit. And another thing also, so what you see here, that's actually this light. When I move this light away, flop, there, it's not in there anymore. Okay. Obviously, more light is coming from the back than where it was before. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. but we can move this a little bit. Welcome to the beauty of digital photography, where we can do trickery like crazy. When I rotate this a little bit more, because I want to see more of this part. Okay, very nice. I can also move this maybe further away. Then, for example, the light gets weaker. I might have to make the light then stronger too. Okay, good. Now we can actually start tweaking the materials for the final approach, since we want to land soon and be done with this video. We're going to finish the aluminum material first. And before we continue that, little smack to myself, because I started talking about this material for the aluminum body by using the wrong slider. This is actually metal, and this front part is plastic. And the big difference between, let's say, a plastic reflection and a metallic reflection is the metallic reflection is tinted by the color of the metal. So to take a look at that, let's go and take a look at this reference image. And there you can see this is not white. When we turn on the reflection here, that is, however, white. So that's wrong. When we change this to metallic, look at that. Colored, colored. I think, to me, honestly, this is the easiest way to explain to students or beginners where's the big difference. Metallic we use for metallic materials, gold, silver, copper, brass, and so forth. And specular we use literally for everything else. Plastic, skin, whatever. Okay. So we can bring this up a little bit. Then also the red again. Yeah, which one do we use? Here, this is photographed with an iPhone or smartphone. That means the image was already processed by the image sensor. And also the lighting environment is important. When I go, for example, to this image here, there you can see that the red is very, very different. And maybe let's drop this one in a little bit. There, it doesn't look too bad. A little bit more of, no, not again. I meant roughness, sorry. Maybe 0.2. Yeah. Now look at that. The reflection here and there. That looks actually pretty close. Maybe a little bit brighter. I'm using the mouse wheel to slide up a little bit. Or tick down. Okay. Then I will go back to this detail image. This is also inside the list of images for you to download. Because what is interesting here is the structure we can see. You can really see how this is knotted. Pretty cool. So how can we very quickly reproduce it? From here, this looks like a landscape. From further away, this is kind of noisy. So everything what we have to do in computer graphics is try to recreate something that looks close. Before we continue to do this, we also want to match our view. So we can see that this is much more foreshortened. So click on this icon or press N, and then we go to view and change maybe view to 70. And then you see that this is less foreshortened, probably much better. Very good. Then this is too far zoomed in. Also, by the way, when we zoom really in, you can see that, we jump into it, press N again, and then go to clip start and say 1 millimeter. So the camera will start clipping once the object is 1 millimeter in it. So we can then actually zoom in a little bit better. And here, these icons for moving and zooming are sometimes better than actually the mouse wheel, which goes in jumps. Okay, so I will zoom in a little bit so I can see this nicely. And I will try to find a look where this seems to be actually pretty close. Yeah, so I guess this is kind of like the angle. There we are. Okay, because if the objects are different in terms of view size, then the material effect will be logically different. We now to give this material a nice bump effect. Well, this is what we want. We can zoom out, go add, input and texture coordinate, add texture and noise, and add vector bump. This is our recipe for a bump mapping. We connect object to vector. Again, object will tell the noise node or noise function how big is this object. And then in relationship to that, it will create the texture over it with a scale of 5. What does scale of 5 actually look like? Well, let's see. 5 is pretty small. 50, now there we can see there's some shadowing happening. 500. Okay, there we see no more of that noise. 5,000. Okay, now this is better. And then this we can plug into the height. This we plug into normal. So the bump command, which will roughen up the surface, will use the black and white information from the noise texture. That's why we use factor. And then black and white basically means hills and valleys, shadows and highlights. That's the way how we simulate the three-dimensional structure on a flat surface. Strength is way too big, 0.1, 0.05 maybe. And now that I'm comparing how does the left and the right side look. Maybe roughness, how's the roughness to a light source? I will take this light and move it a little bit up. So I can see actually under the light. The reason why I did this is when I go to the desktop, there's also this video here, camera position. And when I go down, right around there you can see the light and a little bit of the environment and how diffused actually that reflection is. Okay. So that tells me that we're actually pretty close here. Maybe the bump mapping is a tick too strong. There. Maybe tick smaller. Or maybe the roughness is actually too weak. This is too strong. Yeah, plus minus. Okay, very good. Because we moved the light around a little bit, so what height do we have here? Z, that's 13. So let's move this back down to 13. Okay, very nice. Yeah. So that's, for example, an introduction into how to create a sandblasted, anodized aluminum material. Now we can continue playing with these values and make this more or less reflective, the roughness, the bump mapping. But in general, from a distance, if we take a look at this, this looks actually already quite similar to what we have here. You notice here the highlight, check. this darker area next to the highlight, check. This wider area, our environment is different, so the photo will look different than what we have here, but yeah, check. We have that too, and we maybe hide this with H to hide. It reflects actually the environment. Yeah, okay. To show the camera, sorry, the light again, Alt H. H for hide, Alt H for unhide. Very good. The next material I would like to do is finalize the front face of these dials. If we go ahead and take a look at our reference image, maybe this one, zoom in, there we can see there's something actually going on. And here, there, let's take a look at this image. There you can see there are actually even rings on it. And these rings actually create this anisotropic reflection. When you are somewhere on the beach and you take a break from this course and it's night and you look along the water towards the moon, you will see that the reflection of the moon is not a sphere, it's actually a line. And that's because all the waves are kind of like mountains. They create a little bit of a reflection. I mean, this is more Photoshop thing, but here you can see kind of like what I mean. And from a distance or more enough rings, at one point it will look like, well, lines. And the reflection is stretched along these lines, not with the lines. Okay. In this video 2 here, the effect is very nice to study. There you see, there it's happening. Zip. And there are various ways how to recreate this effect, physically or via material effects. And let me show you how we can do this in a pretty easy and basic way. Okay, so I will select the style, turned off also the render mode, and then we can see that the object center point is there. I would like to change this. So I will select now the style, right click with the mouse and say set origin to geometry. So it is centered. Then I will go into a front view, zoom in, edit mode, and we have to turn off the edge length. Very good. We go to face select. Then we can zoom in a little bit or center it. Deselect everything and then select and see circle with the mouse wheel. We can increase this and then click, go to the corner, click, go to the corner, click, and right click, we stop, zoom in, see, and click to the corner, go to here, see, and then move the mouse wheel, and then middle mouse button, we click and drag and remove from the selection. So left mouse button is add, middle mouse button is remove from the selection. So here I remove these center parts. Very good. Why did I do this? Onto this material, I would like to give a new material. There, there. And then we call this, let's say, anisotropic reflection. And click assign. When we click assign, you saw this changed. We gave that material to the selected faces. Very good. Okay, so we have rings. It's actually very easy to do. So as a beginner, you might not know how to do this. I mean, that's why you have me. I'll show you. Add texture coordinate, add texture waves. Welcome to surfing. Sorry, we're not in California. We're in Michigan. and vector bump there. I will plug this one to here. Let's actually maybe go to this mode, okay, and go to object mode, and there we see the waves. We have bands, very nice. Can go to object, and then maybe say 500. Okay, so the object size is being used, and then this effect gets a scale of 500. What about the Z direction, X, Y direction? No, okay. So we only have lines vertical and horizontal, but I want these lines to spin. Okay, look at that. There are rings. Ta-da. And when we set this to Z or Y, there. So why? Well, you see Z up, X horizontal, and Y is the axis. That's why this is Y. That's all. Okay, now we only have to match the amount. Well, 500 definitely too small. What about 2000? Maybe a tick too small. I mean, too big. Yeah, 1500. Okay, sweet. So, factor into the height. Look how yawningly boring, repetitive this stuff is. That's also the great part. At the beginning, you get a heart attack, so many buttons to click, but then after the second material, you realize, oh, that's actually pretty repetitive, easy to memorize. True to that. Point one. Then I go into the camera. So this should be a metal, so metallic, roughness down. Oh, look at that. There we get it already. And this is basically, we're simulating the physical structure, and then this way we get that effect. When we do a rendering, this is a white material. That's not necessarily really good. So let's make this maybe something dark gray or gray there. It has a roughness, maybe. Very good. Yeah, there's still a little bit something missing. I mean, there are more settings to work with, but actually I would like to, as an introduction, keep it at this level. You start noticing already some of these patterns. And out of curiosity, and let's see, when we put in 3000, it gets even finer. Very good. Okay, so intro level to that type of material. How do we do this now with these dots? Before we continue also here, maybe let's turn this off. Then we go into edit mode. Let's go to a top view, and then we zoom in. We go to wireframe mode, zoom in more, and then we go to select, box select, middle mouse button, click and drag, and we deselect from what is selected. So there's now the cap, the rest is untouched. And then here plus, and then, yeah, here's my anisotropic reflection and assign, leave edit mode, go back to the camera, turn on rendering AA. Oh, look at that. There we have it, there we have it. These buttons actually turn out to be pretty good already. So the position of where we are, how the environment is, all that will influence how this reflection or effect actually will work. But you see with these small ones, it is actually really truly quite believable. You get this CD-like reflection on it. Yeah, and here too. Why did this happen actually on all? Well, because when we made these buttons, we made them as clones. You remember? They all use the same geometry. That means they also share the same material. Very good. Okay. that's how to do these brushed parts. The only thing maybe to finish here is we can see there is a little bit of quite glossy, but not as super glossy as here. And this is, yeah, actually more rough. Oh, interesting. When I now zoom in more, I can see that this was actually an extrusion, and then these grooves are kind of grinded in. I mean, that's the way how they did those. I made those with extrusions of cylinders, so it's not necessarily super correct the way how we actually modeled it. But, well, this is actually what you get when you look at an object or you zoom in with a camera after you took a photo. So anyway, too much talking. How can we match this? Yeah, zip, zip. Number one, roughness 0.2. Okay, 0.2. There, okay. Yeah, so this is actually much better now. So what is when we increase this a little bit? Oh, look at that. You see this starts to look better. So maybe this material here is way too dark. How can I copy actually these materials? Easy. Control C, go to here, Control V. There, we copied the colors between them. I don't even have to click and then copy these values. I just move my mouse over this field, copy C, and then copy V. That's it. Easy peasy. Okay, that's done. How can we add light to these LED rings around it? That's super easy. So, clong, clong, clong. Everything is gone. And then I am going to, can't really zoom in. So here, frame selected. By the way, I know when I go into edit mode, via tab here in this viewport, I have to turn the overlay off. I didn't do this previously and I didn't say this. And here is my object for the LED material. So LED means the material emits light. And everybody talks about CO2 emission, but here we talk about light emission. So let's add light. Boom, and that's it. You see, there's light. We also have an emission strength. We can make this red and 10. Ta-da. And honestly, now all we have to do is match the strength to how strong really this light is. Match the color. So emission strength and color, and pretty much more there isn't really to learn. Obviously, the higher the strength, the more this will blow out. So overburn. But also, as you can see, it shoots out light. So we can give actually any object a light material simply by using the emission material. It is literally that easy. Okay. And then also here we can just turn it on and off, slide it, click and drag. Okay. That was a quick one. Sorry that the others are not as quick. I'm really trying to be fast. I turned back on all the lights, and what is missing now? The text on our front plate. So how do we do this? First, let's actually take a look at that thing. And there we are. So we have a logo, some text, some numbers, monitor, and some other fun elements. Okay. So essentially, this is going to be one image, which we will create with a transparent background, and then we will map that over the geometry of this black element. For the textures, the way how I got those, I simply Googled online Focusrite and then SVG and logo. not PNG or JPEG. You want to look for SVGs because they are pretty much transparent. And actually, I found all these SVGs directly on the Maker website. And then I created PNGs from it and cropped them correctly. Very nice. Okay, so you can use whatever program you want, Illustrator or Affinity Designer. And this exercise, I'm going to use Vectornator. Vectornator is only Mac-based, but in the course you have an iPad, and on the iPad we have Vectornator. Okay, so there we are. And before I continue, let's actually go to this view. I go to the front, and now I would like this to be full screen. Control spacebar, mouse wheel, zoom out, control spacebar. We are back in. So you see, it's just control spacebar to go full screen for one viewport or stop it. Very nice. Then we can press N, shift middle mouse button, rotate into our view. Maybe click this one so we see all the edges, and then we make a screenshot. And based on your operating system, the key shortcut is different, and I try here to do a screen shortcut right on these edges. There we are. Very good. Back to previous and back to the Finder. And here is my screenshot. And I can call this layout, or maybe interface layout. And I will drag this one not in there, but actually onto here, and then a Vectornator will create a new document with this image placed and the artboard fitting it. Option key and mouse wheel, we can zoom in. Very good. Spacebar, we move around. Cool. Now I need to bring in this front image too. There we are. So place this. Very good. There we are. And then with the shift key, I scale this proportionally. And I would like to be able to see this one, but now, well, as you can see, this is not on the artboard. Let's make another artboard. Add new artboard. There, very good. Now this artboard is empty. This is, by the way, also called maybe 2, or it is an artboard. And artboard number 1, I just move away. Here's artboard number 2. And you see there's everything. So maybe 1 I will call layout, and 2 I will call reference. So this way it's easy to know what's what here. And this I will drag onto reference. There it is. Very nice. Okay, and there, I'm dragging this in. So now I can see it. Beautiful. Okay, so we have the Scarlet Solo down here. So this will be primarily our work inside this area. So where is the piece? Textures and Scarlet Solo PNG. Drag this one in. Should work the same way on the iPad. Drag and drop, or you just insert it, or Photoshop. No, not Photoshop. We do not do this in Photoshop. Don't dare touching Photoshop for this stuff. We do this stuff in Illustrator. Why? Why not Photoshop? Well, Photoshop is meant for editing an image, not really doing layouts. Some people do layouts. I don't know why. You don't do that. Cool. Okay, so there we are. Very nice. That's good. And we need to have a little bit of text. So text tool, there we are. Click and drag, 48V. and click and drag air, click and drag gain. Now this is gain 2, click and drag instrument, click and drag monitor, click and drag direct monitor. Okay, now we can drag the stuff out. This text should be centered. We're not really going to change the text or try to match it. It's actually pretty close. This is not Helvetica what they use, but this is fine. Size-wise, this all looks actually pretty legit. And we can move this around a little bit based on how we would like this to be. I will set all those to center, because then this way I can just move those around. You go to here, this goes up. All those align to the top. Very good. Looks like this is a tick too high. Maybe these are a tick too high too. Oh, okay. Very nice. Here we have actually then also number 1 and then number 2. There, and line up to the top. Now, how do we actually position them correctly? Take a look at this little trick I'm using here. I use these 2 lines as a reference. Very good. Then I select both and move them to where I think they should go to. Cool. There are also these additional lines here. I'm skipping them. Pretty. Here we have this USB icon. Let's go to Chrome and say USB logo SVG. There we are. That is it. SVG. Cool. Click and drag. There we are. I think this is actually the previous PNG. If I see this correctly, save as. Save image as. There's no dialog. Oh, anyway, okay. Cool beans. So then we scale and shift this to the position where we need this to be. Don't underestimate actually these tiny details. So when you design a product and you add an interface for it, doing something like what I'm doing here right now, even if it's rudimentary, is really part of industrial design, interface design. How do we interact with something? It's not about making nice sketches. It's also about being able to present the product correctly. And we have a headphone thing here. Oh, that it's still downloading that image. That's interesting. We say headphone icon SVG. So one that looks similar. Maybe this one. That looks kind of hip. Not the same, but fine. Clock. Did it do it? There. Oh, terrible one. See, this actually is... They cheated. This is not an image with a transparent background. Even while this looks, it's transparent. It's not really transparent. Go visit. Let's see what we have. Oh, Pinterest. Okay, well, that's why. Let's go to here. This probably SVG. That seems more legit. Yeah. I hope. Okay, there we are. Cool. I had the feeling this is actually an image too, but this will do it. because we are going to scale this one down with shift really tiny. There's a little bit of an anti-alias issue. White edges there, but for the size where we will use this, this is fine. The icon is still too big. Scale this proportionally. Yeah, this seems to actually be it. Okay, so we kind of like have all the elements positioned where I need them. So that means in layout, this reference image, now technically speaking, I can hide. Cool. Okay, and wanna zoom in here. Oh, good. I can see through. That is actually important because that is something I wanted to be able to see if that actually will work. Everything is black. Very good. Cool. So now, obviously, let's save our design. So interface layout. Very good. And then we will export. And what I will export is the layout. Very good. As PNG. Very nice. You see with JPEG, you have a white background. That's not what I want. So PNG, scale 0.4, so 4 times the size. That means more pixels, it's crisper. And export. And then we say, yeah, interface layout. That should, no, wait. Yeah, layout mask. And actually this will go into our textures folder there. Cool. Okay. So to Blender, prepare yourself. There will be a little bit more geek out coming in a moment, but let's take it slow first. So that layout image we created, we would like to map over the front face of our plate. One easy way is I will select actually the aluminum body, press H to hide it. So I can look into my design, much easier. Select this plate object again, go to edit mode, maybe also turn off rendering here for the moment. And then in this view, we will go to UV editor. And let's zoom in and press A and oh, lots of crazy things here. I will click open and then navigate to where I have my layout. I think interface layout mask. That's that one. Thank you. And when I zoom out now, you can see everything is a little bit crazy. Okay, so press A and then we scale it down, and S we scale it down. G we move it to a corner. S we scale it down. And G, I just position it somewhere here where there's no texture, just transparent area of that image. Okay, now I need to perfectly map the front of my geometry to the proportion of this image. So we do UV unwrapping. And essentially the matching means when, let's say this is 1 unit and 4 units and my image is 1 unit and 4 units, it will perfectly glue over it. Think about it, you have a sticker you want to glue over that surface. So one easy way to make sure we only select the front faces, I go to a side view, wireframe, A8 to select nothing, and then I will go to face select, zoom, move up, zoom in a little bit, then select, and there are different ways, but box select, click, and I only draw over this cyan line because I will miss all the other faces. Yeah, this is correct. Very good. So here now in this view, I say UV unwrap. No, where is it here? Yeah, UV unwrap. It's here. And I will go to the front view. There we are. UV unwrap unwrap and garbage. Let's see, what else do we have? Smart project. Yeah, also garbage. But hey, look at this. Project from view bounds. Zack. Now this geometry will be unwrapped and forced into the boundary of the image. Perfect. So when I now press Tab key to exit, I can see where my text elements are, and you see it all matches perfectly. Okay, good. Camera view, and we can actually turn back the lighting and rendering. We don't really see anything yet. So in here, we can go and say add input and image texture, open, and texture and interface layout. Yes. And drag this one to here. I don't really see anything. Why is this happening? We did everything right. Well, not necessarily. Think about it this way. The plastic is one material and then the text is a print over it. What do we have here? We just have one material. What's missing? Well, the print. Okay, so easy way. We select this one, Shift D, move this down. Then this is specular. We can turn the specular off. We'll click and drag this one to be white. Very nice. This one goes to here. This we disconnect. And here's now a little magical trick. Material 1, material 2, and we need to mix between them. This image, that's the reason why I call this mask, is my mixing mask. What is transparent will be one material. What is not transparent will be the other material. I will click on these triangles to close everything a little bit so I can zoom in more. There you see the inputs and the output. I will go add shader, and this is also a very common process now. We mix these two materials by the transparency of a target image. And then shader here has to go into material output. Oh, look at that. Ta-da! There it is. So one of the cool things here is when I change the color, everything here changes too. You see? Pretty nice. And that is advanced node texturing, or actually not advanced, it's just node texturing. That's also why I don't think going into Photoshop and making renderings for every tiny bit of version makes sense when we can so easily set up nodes in a 3D render program. And yeah, so one thing is missing. The basic stuff is good, but air and 48V instrument and direct monitor, these are actually LED lights. Red, yellow, red, and green. How can we do that? So this process, which we had here, so we have the main plastic reflective material, then we have a white material that we via a mask glue over it. We can continue, so we need to have more masks. If I go back to Vectornator, I actually started turning a lot of elements off. So for example, everything that is white, I kept on. For example, like and where is the one? There, the one. So for example, all this just minus the USB image that I exported as one image too, because this, for example, I call this white text. And then the others I exported as individual images. So you will see that here now I will swap this out and call this white text. Their static text logo. And as you can see now, only the static text is actually showing up. The rest is gone. So let's actually work with the direct monitor. How can we add this one? So we go add and texture image, open. So then we need to look for USB direct monitor. And that's it. Very nice. And this should actually be white. And if we want, also illuminate. Okay, so here I do a copy of this BSDF. For example, the color for the emission could be green at one point. Let's say like this. And I make this 0, so it doesn't emit any light right now. So how do I mix this now to the rest here? Well, the trick is I add another mix shader. There we are. So, and then this outcome, so the static white plus the plastic mixed together with the LED light goes to here. This all looks actually pretty bad right now. What's going on? Well, here we are not mixing correctly there. Sweet. So now you see there we have the direct monitor. And if I set this to 1, zack, it emits light. There you can see that. Pretty cool, no? When I select this one here, you see it's exactly the same technique. Maybe let's turn off all the light and see how this works. Yeah. Beautiful. Now if we 0.5, dim this out, 0. Yeah. Then it's just white again. How can we do now the instrument? Instrument is actually red. Well, it's pretty much cookie cutter now. So this goes over, Shift D, make a copy, drag it on the line. You see then it locks automatically. These two, Shift D, this I connect to here. This alpha I connect to there. And then this I will override with air. There it is. And open this 1 and air then will be kind of like a nice red. For the 8 is actually the same. So these can actually select these 3, Shift D, make a copy, lock. Okay, now this time here to drag it over doesn't work, but here, suck. There we are. And this then will be V48. And then we need that whole shebang one more time, Shift D. And you might say, no, Wayne, this is a really long note. Nope, it's not. This is actually baby stuff here. Air with air, yeah, it's red. No, 48 is red. And air, that is orange. Oh yeah, good. I got confused. Happens. And this will be orange. Cool. Also here, let's do a trick and see how does this all look. That's in. The instrument is actually missing. Air, air. Oh, why am I using actually air here twice? So now we can go ahead and double check everything. You're good. And maybe we we can clean up our design a little bit. This is all one piece. That's not going to really change much. And these nodes here, we can put this over to there, put this to there, and then this way I'm actually kind of like stacking them nicely. It makes it a lot easier to understand where is what. So we have air and V8. Why is this actually not going in? So the air actually I have, hold on. Ooh, this is interesting. No, I'm sorry for the confusion. Yeah, this is actually air. Good. This actually, that should be instrument. Somewhere there, instrument. Ah, there we are. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so you see, not really that complicated. Very logical the way how I'm actually tying everything up. And yeah, here I can turn this back on. This is hidden. There we are. Zoom out a little bit. AA. Yeah. And there's actually now the design where we can see how this is actually nicely rendering and emitting the light. What about we set this to 5? Yeah, we can see then compared to 1 or 5, this is actually a little bit stronger. This is a really shortcut to take this and then render it out. What about we set this to black, by the way? And you see then, this actually works much cleaner. Why? So basically we have this white and then we do this emission color for it. So essentially, this is, however, one thing we need to keep in mind. How can I maybe do a rendering where I see these? Oh, what happened there? Okay, I was just rambling. Okay, restart. You see the green is nice and strong, and here the colors are not as strong. What's going on here? Well, we are mixing a light over a white material. When I turn the base color black, then the light material functions much better, as you can see. No? Maybe two can pump this up a little bit there. And when we turn this off one more time, there you can really see this. Cool. I also have here these LED rings. So let's go to that material. And also here, I can make this black. Or white. So in this mode, actually, you don't necessarily see much, but in kind of like here with the text. So we go to instrument. When we drag this one, there you can see it's too bright, and that's essentially, think about two materials working at the same time. So we can do it this way, very easy. So this is then basically how we can render actually this design with a light together. If we want to make all these greens also the same, maybe one last trick here is try to select the LED element there. right click, not right click, Control C, copy that color. And then for this Control V, we paste that color. Now these two are really the same. Very good. Okay, so last, this is maybe more an kind of like a tiny advanced trick for those people who do not want to have to adjust these materials all the time, which works. How can we actually create bridges for it? Nodes are really a rabbit hole. You can get lost in them really, really fast. I personally find this process really easy because when I do have to do renderings, I can very quickly set this all up. But I will do this here with the last one. Essentially, we have a white material and we have a light emitting material. So I could also do the following. I move this away, Shift D, make a copy, bring this one in, bring this over. Okay, very good. So this one is being parked right now. Then air, I make a copy, and now I need to have a white material and I need to have a light material. So Shift A, shader. Look at that. There is actually an emission material. You can click and drag this over. There we are. Good. And then the text, maybe a very basic white glossy material. Shift A, shader, glossy. There's my white material. Maybe no reflection. So between these two materials, I would like to kind of like mix maybe, let's say. So here is this mix material. Shift A, there. And then you and you go in, and then this I will drag to there. You see it's white or light, and then this alpha I drag to there. Cool. So now you see I have a slider between white or the light. I could actually nest all that stuff even more. So I only have this one time, but then I have a lot of these mixed nodes, and I found honestly, again, this process of taking a look at everything and then simply changing the color simply works much better. But I just wanted to show you, for those who are interested, how this could be done. Also to maybe make this a little bit more, I don't want to say more detailed, but with a little bit more of finesse. Okay, very good. So the materials are done, and then maybe now it's time to take a look at the rendering. Never forget to save. While taking a look at this image for a nice rendering idea, I realized, whoops, there is the Focusrite logo on top. How can we do this very quickly? That will be really fast, I promise. So here is my object. Very nice. So here, let's go to this. And when we go to top view, this is perfectly centered. Very good. Okay, so let's go ahead and say add, and then image as a reference. Then we go to textures, and where is Focusrite? There it is, loaded. There is Focusrite. Let's move this one up. With S we can scale it, and when we click it and go to materials, we see there's no material. I would like this actually to show up as a rendered object, because if we go to rendering, yeah, we can see it, but I would like to change the color and all this stuff. So, okay, X and delete. Let's go to file import. Can we import an image? It's not there yet. Easy peasy. We go to edit preferences, add-ons, and then here we type in image, import image as plane. Perfect. Thank you. File image, image as plane. Then we go back to textures. There's the logo, S, and scale this one down. Move this up. We can turn on material preview. Takes a second. There we are. Along the x-axis, we can probably rotate it. Yeah, there we are. Or actually set this to 0. Perfect. Then I will go to a front view and move this one super, super close. There. So this is kind of like yeah, like a print on the object. And in real life, we would also print it. And then we can compare. How big is this? Yeah, tilt to big, S, okay. And then when we take a look at how is this material made? Oh, interesting. So there is the logo and color goes to there, and then the alpha goes into the alpha to make the rest of the plane actually transparent. Okay, now that's the way how this works. And here, let's check, drag this one out, and there's our white. Now we can make this nice and glossy if we want this to be a glossy print. So AA, and yeah, this looks better now. Now we put actually a sticker over it. Obviously, when we want to, or if we rotate the whole audio device, we need to make sure that this thing will move with it. So like through the parenting or grouping, because this is not part, unlike with the front element, part of the texture, this is an individual object. So that only added roughly 2 minutes. That's okay. Now we can take a look at this video and see which view do you like. Now, do you want more dramatic, more from the top? It's really interesting when we go down how the colors change, particularly in the red with the iPhone and the way how it adjusts the colors. Yeah, okay. So we can kind of like think this is maybe quite nice. So let's go back then to Blender. We can turn on the render engine, AA. Then what's going on there? There's an interesting issue. I was actually too close. So G and Z and just move it a tick up. And there we are. Perfect. Very good. Why did this happen? I don't know. Let's simply say that maybe the objects were too close and the render engine calculated them together. So very good. This is all nice. Yeah, for the camera, final settings. We can go to the top view. Do we want to maybe play one more time with the rotation a little bit more? Or do we go for a front view? Let's go back actually to a front view. So I stop the rotation. So you see it's actually really nice doing it this way because lights, cameras, everything goes with it. Then we can select this one. See, go up or go down. Oh, we really like what we have here. And now we can go ahead and maybe play with the lights a little bit more. So 5 we set to 0. Then we get actually a lot here in the back, maybe 2. And here I would like to turn left and right off. So you see, it doesn't really add much light actually on top. So maybe 3, 5 watts, 15 watts. Yeah, 5 watts. Okay, good. And from the left, from the right. The left one, maybe 5, a little bit stronger. So we're not going to make this very even, left and right even. Okay, good. The backdrop, when I select it, so far it was always white, and let's add the reflectivity on it and maybe turn the roughness off. We don't really see much when we turn the base color to be black, and actually it doesn't look too bad. You also notice that now with the backdrop being made black, the whole image got really dark. When I move this one a little bit forward, you see this area gets a little bit more light, or I keep it on top. Maybe let's rotate this one more time. So I'm kind of like switching a little bit forward and backwards now, and you might say, oh, this is so confusing. True, it is. At the beginning, it always is. But what I actually am happy to show you with this is that you saw that I had an idea how something might work out, but then it didn't really work out. So what do you do then? Change camera, change lights. Don't force an image. Maybe a little bit closer, maybe a little bit further away. So moving the whole studio around. This one maybe further away or even closer. So we can move everything nicely with the local orientation. We still have this turned on. So I'm adjusting actually all the lights. Because I'm in top view, I'm pressing G and then R, and I'm rotating it so that actually the light, comes actually more from the front. You see, I actually show a nice amount of light on this corner. Cool. And also here, if I want, I can maybe put this to the back. What about when I give this 10 or 0? I was just curious how that effect would be. Okay. Yeah. The top, maybe we can add more, or don't forget, we also have here our environmental light. We can brighten everything up a little bit. There we are. And then here we have this really silly reflection on the ground. Yeah. Maybe the backdrop has to be changed. Also not really a big problem. We are still in local orientation, so I go into edit mode and now into edge select this edge, and I move this edge further away. And you see that fixes the front problem. I can select with A everything, then I click on scale and scale it along the x-axis in local. You see I'm making this wider or smaller. And you see how this affects the reflection. Pretty cool. Nice. Yeah, now this is already much cleaner. Leave the edit mode, go back to object mode. Maybe this is too high glossy in the front. Maybe a little bit of roughness, just a notch. Really good. See, the paper ground is actually reflected more glossy, but the dials, because they're closer, they're a tick sharper. Look at this effect. Actually, it turned out pretty good. Okay, very nice. Now, how do we fix the whole thing with the reflection in the back? Yeah. Oh, that looks good. We increased the roughness, so it's really super rough. So all the reflections are super diffused. Actually, that creates an interesting effect similar to being like anodized aluminum. Maybe let's go with that. There will be other videos where I will show how to render something on and just we cut it out, etc. But for me right now, trying to style a rendering, playing with the values, that looks actually pretty good. If I make this too dark, it's too dark. Maybe increase the brightness. You see then the around the area is just too bright, but being darker here really helps actually. This thing here I will guide back, or whoa, where did it go to? Or bring to the front. If it's behind the camera, sorry, behind the object, it illuminates this area more. Maybe I keep it where it is. Okay. Goody. I think this angle and all the positions are nice. I see a little bit of reflection of that light coming in there. So I move this a tick back. Very good. Control S to save. Now it's time to do the rendering. We can turn this on. Very good. Turn this off. Format. Yeah. 1920 by 1080. Let's save before we do a rendering. 100 samples. I'm not turning the denoise on right now. I would like first to see how this even looks. Render. Yeah, you can see. Actually, it's not too bad. Clearly, there's a lot of light coming actually from the front and not really from here. So why is that happening? Let's take a look at this. Oh, I had these render flags turned off. Okay, render again. New. I would say for a quick rendering, this is actually not too bad. The bump mapping is still here looking way too strong for the aluminum. The anisotropic effect, which we try to fake via bump mapping, works out actually really good. The glossiness, roughness can be a little bit reduced. And the rest is actually, yeah, not too bad. Maybe make this a little bit darker. Very good. Okay, so let's go to slot 2 so we can compare. We set this one and a little bit less roughness. This one maybe a tick darker. Very good. And maybe that was also maybe it's less reflective or less roughness. More roughness, less roughness. You can see how the highlight is nice here. These here, maybe I'm just playing around. What happens when I adjust the color? The rest is actually specified or adjusted through the reflection here. So there, yeah, okay. And yeah, I could do another rendering. We also said here the bump mapping is too strong. So I will reduce this by 50%. Very nice. And here's when we brighten this up. You see, it has a lot of effect on the environment. You see, this is nice and dark with 1. The environment is kind of bright because you see now there's environment, and with this, it's really dark. I don't want this to be too bright. This is kind of okay. This is maybe a tick too bright, so maybe darken this a little bit. Very good. The rest of the instruments and these dials are good. Okay, then we can go to maybe 200, let's say for final rendering. And then also for the denoise, turn this on. Open image denoise. Let's save this one and save and hit render. Now with 200 samples, it will take a little bit longer. And you see, unfortunately, the denoiser is pretty aggressive by filtering out a lot of the sweet details we put in there. That's a downside of denoisers. They can be really amazing or they can totally ruin your effect. But actually we have a really nice anisotropic effect from a distance. And this piece has to be, I think, still to be denoised. But otherwise, this is actually a nice and clean rendering. The lighting is quite good. It can still be improved. Again, this is just a beginner project. We're already over 2 hours. So if I'm going to actually, or how many seconds we have left? Yeah, 12 seconds. Okay, let's finish rendering this. What's actually nice is how the denoiser cleans up the background. There, and now if we compare number 1 and number 2. Yeah, so these were maybe too bright. Darker looks actually better. Yeah. What about the dials? The knobs? Yeah, it's also better. Okay, very good. Yeah. Then we could go image and save as, and we are done.